Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. In this video today, I'm going to talk about COVID-19 vaccines, and what I'm going to cover specifically in this video, I'm going to show you how Moderna and Pfizer-BioNTech vaccines actually work in the body. Before I get started, please hit that like icon, comment down in the comment section, and please subscribe. Okay? I also include in this video description box below here the link for the pathogenesis for you guys to have a more elaborate understanding on the functions of the protein that these vaccines are targeted. All right, let's go and get started. Both the two vaccines use the same kind of technology, which is called the mRNA technology. This is a new technology in vaccine development. So what these companies do is that they selected a target on the SARS coronavirus. And the target they selected the spike protein. So this spike protein that you are seeing. So why the spike protein now? And that the reason for selecting the spike protein is that among all the species of the coronavirus, they have the same spike protein. So if we can target this protein and develop a vaccine against it, so we can treat the all kind of coronavirus infections. So this is a spike protein after being extracted from the SARS coronavirus type 2. So these companies then go on their way backward and get the mRNA of the protein. And this is the reason for the name mRNA technology. And this is the reason also why this technique is very safe and effective. Because if we develop this mRNA, we are going to get the spike protein only and not the entire virus. And that is why we don't have any risk of getting infected with the virus. So the next thing is that this mRNA is closed or covered up with something called lipid nanoparticle. So this lipid nanoparticle, it serves two important functions. One is protection, and the protection is that it protects the virus, it protects this mRNA against some proteins that might destruct it. The second function is transport, and its function to transport this mRNA into the cell, because lipid nanoparticle is lipid and the cell membrane is lipid too. So it kind of lipid fusion lipid. That is basically what happens. So when someone get injected with the vaccine, usually through the intramuscular route, the vaccine will be within the spaces of cells. So this is the vaccine and this is the cell. So this cell can be any type of cell, it can be liver cells or any type of cell. So this lipid nanoparticle will then fuse with the cell, as we are seeing. And what it fuses, it will ultimately release this mRNA into the cell. So I have my mRNA inside the cell. So this mRNA, in any way, it does not get into the nucleus. And that is why it is not incorporated in our DNA. So in any way, it does not get in the nucleus. What it does is that it uses the cell ribosome. And so this is the cell ribosome. It will get into the ribosome and get translated into protein. So which protein now? The spike protein. So the spike protein so formed inside the cell will then be transported into another organelle called proteasome, and in this organelle, this spike protein will be degraded into some small fragments, as you are seeing. So these fragments will then be expressed on the surface of this cell, specifically on a protein called MHC1 protein. So this is my MHC1 protein, and this MHC1 protein is found in all nucleated cells. So all cells that have nucleus can express MHC1 protein. So now I have my spike protein fragments on the MHC1 protein. So this complex formed of the spike protein and the MHC1 will attract the cytotoxic T cells. So these are my cytotoxic T cells. And the cytotoxic T cells will bind and interact with this complex. and this binding and interaction relates to release of some destructive molecules. So these are my destructive molecules. And what does these destructive molecules do is that they damage or destruct this cell. So what I mean here is that if this cell is infected with COVID-19 later and not the cell that is processing the vaccine at that time. So this is the first mechanism by which these vaccines work, and this mechanism is called MHC-1 based mechanism or exogenous antigen presentation, and that is because the antigen comes from outside of the cell. So now the second mechanism. So in the second mechanism, what happens is that when this mRNA get into the cell and get translated into the spike protein, which I believe you remember, some of this spike protein will get ejected and move out of this cell, as you are seeing. So now these spike proteins will be within the spaces and within the fluids of the body. So what happens is that there are some special type of immune cells which are called professional antigen presenting cells, and these cells are basically three. They comprises the macrophages, the B cells, and the dendritic cells. So the perfect example to understand what these special immune cells do is that you can exemplify them as a police, and what they do is that they patrol and look for any invading agent. For example, here the spike protein. So what happens is that this spike protein will be swallowed up by any of these immune cells. So this is my professional antigen presenting cell, and this is the spike protein. So this cell can be any of the three. It can be dendritic cell, it can be the macrophage or the B cell. So this cell will swallow up this spike protein. So now I have the spike protein inside this professional antigen presenting cell. So in this cell, this spike protein will be digested and broken down into some small tiny fragments. So these are the fragments that will be formed from the spike protein. So these small fragments so formed will then be expressed on the surface of this cell. We know this mechanism, right? So this small fragment will be expressed on specific membrane protein called MHC2 protein. So you remember, right? In the first mechanism, these small fragments are expressed on MHC1 protein. So, but now in MHC2 protein. So this MHC2 protein is found only on antigen presenting cells, the cells that I have mentioned, right? So now I have this tiny small fragment of spike protein on the MHC2 protein. So this complex so formed will then attract the T helper cells. So these are my T helper cells. So these T helper cells will use their membrane protein. Specifically, they will use CD4 and STR to bind and interact with this complex. So they will bind and interact with this complex, and this binding and interaction will lead to this T helper cell to become activated. So now I will have an activated T helper cell. So this is now activated T helper cell. So this activated T helper cells so formed will then release some cytokines. Which of the cytokines it will release? It will release interleukin 2, interleukin 4, and interleukin 5. So these are my cytokines now. So this cytokine release will then stimulate the B cells to proliferate. So these are my B cells. So these cytokines will stimulate these B cells to proliferate. When I say proliferate, I mean to multiply, right? So we have a lot of B cells. By informing these B cells to proliferate, it will also inform these B cells to differentiate. And when they differentiate, by differentiating, they will form these important small cells you are seeing. So these important small cells are called the plasma cells. So these are my plasma cells, which are formed after the B cells differentiate. So these plasma cells will then produce antibodies. So these are the antibodies that will be produced by the plasma cells, and these antibodies are directed against the spike protein. So if we can get these antibodies to work on their way and bind to this spike protein, we will neutralize the virus, or ultimately to contribute to the destruction of the virus, and this will totally block the virus from causing the infection. So these are the two mechanisms by which these vaccines actually work in the body. Alright guys, that's it for this video. I hope you found this video helpful. Please, if you think others will benefit from this video you just watched, please share it with them. And if you are new here, hi, I'm Salis. Please subscribe to my channel and in fact hit that notification bell so that you'll be notified anytime I make a new upload. And if you have any question, please let me find it down here in the comment section. Alright, thanks for watching all the way to the end, and I look forward to seeing you in my next video. Bye for now.